There are toys, and then there are freak-out-worthy toys. Toys that get big reactions like...
OMG, no way!
Or...
Best present ever!
Or...
It's what I've always wanted.
For those toys, you need Walmart. They've got exclusives from major brands like Disney, Barbie, and Adventure Force that you can't find anywhere else. Toys that make kids jump for joy.
Thank you, thank you!
And make you a hero for giving them. Shop hundreds of exclusive toys.
Yes!
Welcome to your Walmart.
With Lululemon, the real gift happens when your holiday checklist is complete. When you give them the coziest scuba matching set, you both get moments like this. And this. And this. This holiday, Lululemon makes it easy to find last-minute gifts that bring presents. Open the moment. Shop now at Lululemon.com.
The Tudors Dynasty Podcast.
Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Rebecca Larson. On today's episode, we will dive into the daring lives of two extraordinary women who ruled the seas and defied the conventions of their time. Jeanne de Clisson, the Lioness of Brittany, and Grace O'Malley, Ireland's pirate queen. Jeanne de Clisson's journey began in the noble courts of 14th century France, but tragedy transformed her into a force of vengeance. After her husband's wrongful execution by the French crown, she sold everything she owned, rallied a fleet of black-painted ships, and became a pirate who prowled the English Channel, striking fear into the heart of the French monarchy. Her story is one of resilience, justice, and an unrelenting quest for retribution. Grace O'Malley, born nearly 200 years later in Western Ireland, charted her course as a fearless mariner and chieftain. Defying English rule during the Tudor conquest, she commanded ships, led daring raids, and even stood face-to-face with Queen Elizabeth I to negotiate her family's freedom and rights. Known as a skilled navigator and formidable leader, Grace's legacy lives on as a symbol of Irish resistance and independence. In this episode, we'll navigate the turbulent waters of their remarkable lives, exploring how these two women challenged empires, inspired legends, and shaped the course of history. Jeanne de Clisson, also known as Jeanne de Belleville, and famously dubbed the Lioness of Brittany, was born in France in 1300. At the time, Brittany was an autonomous region in what is now Western France. At the age of 12, she was married off to a 19-year-old Breton noble. The marriage brought two children before her husband's death in 1326. Her son, Geoffrey, inherited his father's title, and her daughter, Louise, later became the sole heir to her brother's estate after his untimely passing. Jeanne remarried twice. Her second marriage ended in annulment for political reasons, but it was her third union to Oliver de Clisson in 1330 that would cement her place in history. Together, they thrived within Breton society, raising 4 children, though some suggest a possible 5th child, whose parentage is debated. This marriage set the stage for Jeanne's rise to fame and the legendary life that followed. Jeanne and Oliver de Clisson shared a happy life together, but Jeanne was determined to ensure that her rights and those of her children were protected. When disputes arose regarding earnings from Oliver's estate, as stipulated in their marriage contract, Jeanne did not hesitate to take the matter to court. The case was heard by King Philip VI of France, and the ruling was in Jeanne's favor, a testament to the legal rights available to medieval noblewomen in France and Jeanne's courage in asserting them. However, the War of the Breton Succession would soon upend Jeanne's world. Following the death of the Duke of Brittany without an heir, both France and England laid claim to the region. As a senior baron, Oliver was forced to choose a side in the conflict. He aligned himself with the French, But a series of misunderstandings led the French crown to suspect him of betraying them to the English. In a shocking turn of events, Oliver and 14 other minor lords were invited to a tournament in Paris, under the guise of celebrating a truce between the warring nations. Once there, they were arrested, hastily tried without evidence, and convicted of treason. Oliver was executed by beheading, and his head was displayed on a spike, as a grim warning against betrayal. In a devastating moment of defiance and grief, Jeanne brought her 2 sons to witness the sad display of their father's head, a sight that would ignite her infamous quest for vengeance. Jeanne de Clisson was consumed by vengeance. She sold her lands and nearly all her possessions to fund the purchase of 3 ships, rallying 400 loyal supporters to her cause. Her fleet, later known as the Black Fleet, turned the English Channel into her hunting ground, targeting French ships with ruthless precision. Jeanne earned the moniker the Tragic Widow in Paris, her reputation steeped in tales of relentless vengeance. She reportedly granted no mercy, plundering and sinking vessels, and executing nearly all captured crew members. On occasion, Jeanne herself wielded the axe, as did her grown children. She deliberately spared a few survivors to deliver her grim message to King Philip VI. Her ships were a chilling sight, painted black with blood-red sails, and her flagship bore the telling name, My Revenge. By December 1343, Jeanne's exploits had drawn the full ire of King Philip. The French navy was ordered to capture her at all costs, but Jeanne eluded them for years. In 1346, during the Battle of Crécy, Jeanne's fleet supplied provisions to English forces, continuing to outmaneuver her enemies. The tide finally turned in 1348 during a fierce confrontation between the Black Fleet and the French Navy. Outnumbered and outgunned, Jeanne fought to the bitter end. Most of her fleet was destroyed, and French forces stormed her flagship, reaching the captain's cabin only to find Jeanne gone. Against all odds, she and her sons, along with 6 crew members, escaped in a small boat. For 6 harrowing days, they endured the freezing winds of the English Channel without food, water, or proper shelter. Tragedy struck when one of her sons succumbed to the brutal conditions. Eventually, they washed ashore on the Breton coast, where John de Montfort offered them refuge, providing food, clothing, and assisting in the burial of her son. However, with French forces patrolling the area, Jeanne and her remaining son could not stay long. Boarding another ship, they fled once more, seeking safety in England. As Jeanne departed France, the Black Death swept through Europe, leaving devastation in its wake. In England, the plague claimed 25% of the population, but the toll was even more catastrophic in Paris, which lost half of its inhabitants over 4 harrowing years. By 1350, King Philip VI was dead, and France was reeling from the dual blows of the plague and ongoing conflicts. In the aftermath of these tumultuous events, Jeanne remarried for a final time, choosing Walter Bentley, an English military leader. Her son was sent to live at the court of King Edward III, solidifying their ties to England. Jeanne and her husband eventually returned to Brittany, where she spent her remaining years. After a life marked by resilience and defiance, Jeanne de Clisson passed away at the age of 59. Her story of vengeance and defiance left its mark on history, showcasing the fierce resolve of a woman wronged by her enemies. Nearly 2 centuries later, another fearless woman would rise from the rugged coasts of Ireland to command the seas. Like Jeanne, Grace O'Malley faced immense personal and political challenges, but she carved her legacy not through vengeance alone, but by balancing rebellion with shrewd diplomacy. Together, these two women exemplify the unyielding spirit of those who dared to defy expectations of their time. Grace O'Malley, mariner, pirate, rebel, and trailblazing leader, was born in 1530 in Western Ireland. The only daughter of Gaelic chieftain Owen O'Malley and his wife, Margaret, Grace grew up in the family castles of Belclare and Clare Island. Likely educated at a local monastery, she was well versed in both practical and maritime knowledge. The Tower House where she was born still stands at the tallest structure on Clare Island. From an early age, Grace became deeply involved in the O'Malley family's seafaring enterprises, which included trade, plundering, and piracy. Her clan controlled the coastal territories of County Mayo, centered on the island-strewn Clew Bay. Over time, Grace established herself as a formidable leader both on land and at sea, earning the title of Ireland's Pirate Queen during a period of Tudor reconquest. The life of a pirate was arduous and perilous, requiring both physical resilience and a profound understanding of the Atlantic Ocean. Grace needed to have the skills of a navigator, using the stars as her guide, allowing her to venture as far as Spain and the Isle of Bata in Scotland. Her daring raids often targeted enemy territories, where she plundered goods, including cattle, a vital measure of wealth in Gaelic Ireland. Grace's ships were impressive for their time, capable of carrying up to 200 men. Similar in design to Viking longships, her galleys were fitted with shallow wooden hulls that enabled them to navigate close to shorelines. Unlike their Viking predecessors, however, her vessels included amenities such as bathrooms, a rare luxury. Each galley was powered by 30 oars, ensuring swift movement during raids or retreats. From a young age, Grace would have mastered the handling of curraghs, traditional Irish rowing boats, a foundational skill for her maritime exploits. Through grit, resourcefulness, and sheer audacity, Grace O'Malley charted a path that defied the conventions of her time, leaving a legacy as a leader of both rebellion and maritime prowess. At just 15 years old, Grace O'Malley was married off to Donald O'Flaherty, a chieftain with whom she had 3 children. Following Donald's death, Grace succeeded him as chieftain, rallying as many of his followers as she could and returning to her stronghold on Clare Island. She later remarried another chieftain, Richard the Iron Burke, but this time with a prenuptial agreement. A strategic move that highlighted her growing independence and business acumen. It was during this period that Grace fully embraced a life on the seas, trading in fish, furs, and hides, while also targeting English ships for plunder whenever trade slowed. Clare Island's proximity to Galway, a major trading hub, provided a rich opportunity for Grace's maritime activities. It was here that the legend of Ireland's Pirate Queen truly began. One of her most famous tales recounts an attack on her ship shortly after she had given birth to her son. Despite being below deck nursing her newborn, Grace put the baby down, stormed the deck, fired her musket, and led her crew to victory. By the 1570s, the Tudor conquest of Ireland became increasingly urgent as Elizabeth I feared that Spain or the Holy Roman Empire might use Ireland as a gateway to attack England. In 1584, Sir Richard Bingham, a ruthless English naval commander, was appointed governor of Connaught. Under Bingham's administration, Grace faced mounting challenges. The conflict between Grace and Bingham escalated following a dispute with the governor's brother, which led to the murder of Grace's eldest son, Owen O'Flaherty. Enraged, Grace launched a rebellion against Bingham, but she was eventually captured. The united efforts of Irish chieftains who provided hostages and guarantees secured her release. However, Bingham retaliated harshly, confiscating her cattle and horse herds, stripping her of her land, and forcing her to live aboard her galley ship. To further tighten his grip, he also captured Grace's youngest son, Tibbet, leaving her with little choice but to continue fighting against her oppressors. Desperate, with nowhere else to turn, Grace petitioned Queen Elizabeth directly. Nearing poverty, she requested relief, the release of her son, and permission to serve as a privateer, attacking the crown's enemies. Her letter was both a plea for aid and a strategic attempt to bypass Bingham's authority by appealing to the Queen herself. Elizabeth's response was unusual. Rather than a direct reply, she sent Grace a document containing 18 detailed questions about her family background, connections, and means of livelihood. Grace's reply offered a candid account of her marriages, family, and hardships, presenting herself as a victim of poverty and persecution. Her words were calculated to elicit Elizabeth's sympathy while framing her as a loyal subject wronged by her own officials. Her resolve culminated in a journey to London, where she secured an audience with Queen Elizabeth at Greenwich in September 1593. By then, both women were seasoned leaders in their respective realms. While Bingham wrote to court accusing Grace of instigating nearly every rebellion in Connaught over the past 40 years, and another official branded her most notorious woman on Ireland's coast, Grace managed to leave a strong impression on Elizabeth. Against all odds, her requests were granted. The Queen ordered the release of her son and the restoration of her property on the condition that Grace cease any rebellious activities against the crown. During the 1603 Battle of Kinsale, Tibbet and other Mayo chieftains joined forces with Queen Elizabeth's army, playing a crucial role in the defeat of the Spanish and their Irish rebel allies. This alignment likely contributed to Grace O'Malley's exclusion from Irish history. Furthermore, her defiance of societal expectations, openly challenging the laws, traditions, and gender norms of her time, also led to her being marginalized, as she rejected the conventional roles of women and loyalty in her era. The lives of Jeanne de Clisson and Grace O'Malley are powerful reminders of the strength and resilience of women who defied the constraints of their eras. Both women turned personal tragedies into defining moments, wielding their determination and leadership to leave lasting legacies. Jeanne's fierce vengeance on the French and Grace's bold defiance against English rule illustrate their ability to navigate the tumultuous seas of both their literal and metaphorical worlds. Their stories continue to inspire, serving as a testament to the courage it takes to fight for justice, freedom, and survival in the face of overwhelming odds. And that concludes another episode of the Tudors Dynasty podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If you love the show and would like to show your support, consider becoming a patron over on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Tudors Dynasty. Over there, you'll get commercial-free episodes, early access, and some patron-exclusive content as well. If you would prefer to show your support in another way, head on over to my website, tudorsdynasty.com, and click on the shop to see some of the new merchandise that I have available. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.
The Tudors Dynasty Podcast.